Just give Amena Brown a round of applause.
So when I got the email from the Creative Mornings team that they wanted me to speak, I was super excited because I have been in this audience many times over the years and have been so inspired here. And then when I reread the email and it said that the theme was anxiety, I was like, oh, do you have something you want to say to me, Blake? But now, almost 90 days post having released my second nonfiction book, I have quite a bit to say about creative anxiety, and I would define creative anxiety as sort of that nervous, insecure feeling we all feel when we are staring at whatever is the beginning of an idea. And I think creative anxiety is also what we feel sometimes after we put our ideas out into the world. So I'm hoping that as we talk about that and I tell you some mistakes I made, I'm hoping that that will help all of us. Let's see if I know how to use, oh, look at this. Cody, you're hooking me up over here. All right. So when I was working on my first book, which was Breaking Old Rhythms, I had a lot of creative anxiety, mostly because I felt like I needed to fit into what I thought a book should be, to what I thought the frame of that should be and the format, and because everyone said, well, Amena, in your career, it's time now to write a book. So I finished my first draft of that book, and my husband comes in after I turned it into the publisher, and he says, you finished the first draft of your book, we have to go celebrate. And I went, oh my God, we can't. I had this really great idea in my mind of what that book was supposed to be, and the first draft did not meet up to it. So I waited a long time between books. Number one, I never wanted to write another book or create another project because it was time. I think that's a weird way to come into the creative process. I wanted to make or create something because I had something to say, because I had a thing that I felt would create some connection with other human beings. So that was sort of how the idea of how to fix a broken record was born. But one thing we know, that everybody in here, no matter what it is we do for a living, no matter what we're passionate about, or no matter how much we might hate the job we're going to go to when we leave here, we all have something in common, and that is that creative anxiety is coming for all of us. Everybody, it's going to meet you at the blinking cursor on a stage just like this, in the meeting, when you've got to go from an idea to figuring out how you're going to get that idea to become reality, right? The other thing is, it's coming for all of us, but it still sucks. It makes us cuss. It makes us cry. It makes us nervous. It brings up all of our insecurities. It makes me eat carbs. That is my anxiety drug of choice. It is not an accident that I co-host a podcast called Here for the Donuts, because I am. That is what I must do to survive. How I feel when I get ready to stare at that process. So I want to let you all in on my creative process a little bit. This is how this goes. This is how I write poems. This is how the books got written. So I like to start with procrastination. I don't know if you guys know about that. It's a great way to be inspired. I typically start with like a task that doesn't make any sense and is very unnecessary, like a bunch of receipts that maybe haven't been filed or something, you know? It's a good time to slide those into a file folder. So I kind of start off like that, or like, paper clips, they really hate to be unorganized, and they all need a place. They're gonna be together. So I do that for a while. Next thing I do is I call a friend. I always pick a talker. So that way I know that's going to take up like 30 minutes or an hour conversation. Then I like to daydream. This typically involves some squirrels, maybe outside. I'm just wondering, what are they doing, you know? Are they able to feed their families? I just have a lot of questions I need to really think about in my private time. Okay. Then I decide, all right, I go to the muse, and for me, the muse is John Coltrane and Miles Davis, particularly in that era that is post-bebop, but before jazz got weird. So I listen to that, and then I write, and I just write about all my insecurities, and that typically sounds like, wow, this is really gonna suck. This is not gonna be as good as that other thing I made. Wonder what Beyonce's doing. And after I write through my insecurities, I pray, which typically sounds like, God, please don't let this suck. Okay. Then I typically remember a snack I forgot to eat. So just need to get that one last procrastinate in, and it takes me like 2 hours to eat a handful of almonds or whatever. And then I finally make something. I finally sit down and get the ideas out, right? There's all this anxiety I have to walk through before I can finally get to the point where I'm going to embrace the process, embrace how I think I could maybe get this idea out of my head, right? One of the other things that I'm learning about the creative process, about how much anxiety it gives me, is, first of all, I gotta have a way I'm gonna survive through that, right? And if I could sort of put together a creative's survival kit, it would have two things. One of those things would be a tissue box, because you're probably gonna cry. And it's okay. You know, if you just go ahead and be like, I'm just gonna go ahead and have some tears here. I just practice keeping the Kleenex right there. Because while I was writing How to Fix a Broken Record, I cried a lot. Sometimes I cried because I felt so vulnerable, having to write this spiritual memoir, having to write things that were hard to write about, having to write about things that were heartbreaking to me. And sometimes I cried because I was just like, this is gonna be so bad, and who's ever gonna read this book? And I don't know. And I ate chocolate because, you know, if I have eaten brownies as much as I wanted to, or drank wine as much as I wanted to, you know, that would have created a problem. I want to give you some tools to how you can survive creative anxiety. I experienced the anxiety writing. I experienced the anxiety on the other side after I had to sort of release out into the world this thing I'd made. But after all this, how do we survive the anxiety? I would say, one, you've got to pinpoint what's underneath your creative anxiety. I'll tell you an example. I have a dating section in my book because it went badly sometimes. And I thought I should write about that for other people, that maybe dating also went badly. I am married to a wonderful man now, DJ Obdiggy, who's here. And, hey, babe. But before marrying DJ Obdiggy, you know, there were some things that just went badly in my dating life. Some went good, but some went badly. And there was this particular really bad breakup that I needed to write about, because I had learned this great lesson about myself and about love and just about what it was I wanted to be open to in the world and through love and relationships, right? So I sort of go into the chapter and I just start right there with the lesson, like, here are the wonderful things I learned from this terrible thing that happened. And then I got stuck. We all know that stuck feeling when you're getting ready to create something and you felt like the rhythm was going good, and then you hit that wall of like, this is not turning out to be the idea I had. And I called my writing coach and I'm like, something's not right about this chapter. And she said, oh, you're doing this all wrong. She said, you have to make the reader fall in love with him. And when somebody's broken your heart, for somebody to say, you got to go back to the beginning and make the reader fall in love with him, no, you need better advice. I don't want this. But she's right, I skipped a step. What was underneath my creative anxiety was I didn't want to face how much that experience had hurt me. But sometimes even in the things that hurt us, it's also hard to face that there was some beauty there, that it was somebody I loved once. It was somebody that I learned a lot of good lessons from. So I had to start from the beginning. I had to start from that first day we met and all the butterflies that I felt. And I had to carry the story all the way to the end through the broken heart, but also through the person that I became from surviving that broken heart, right? So you got to pinpoint what's under there. Is it fear? Is it that you've taken on a project that you're pretty sure you're underqualified to do? Is it that you spent too much time comparing what it is you do to other people? Like, what's underneath? What is making you so creatively anxious? Next, go ahead and bring your creative anxiety into the creative process. I tend to treat my creative anxiety sometimes just like it's like a pet or something that you're like, no, don't come in here. No, don't come in here. Stay in your bed. Stay in your space. When I first started performing poetry, I had this idea in my head that whenever I would come to the stage, I needed to come to the stage in spite of whatever was going on in my life. And I learned that that's not the right way to come to stage. I got to come to stage with whatever is going on in my life. So take your creative anxiety and bring it into the room with you. You may find that you will find some strengths in your creative anxiety. You'll find your vulnerability. You'll find your humanity, the thing that connects all of us to each other. When you bring that into your creative process, you can actually create from this very honest and authentic place. And that's what we identify with. It's not even really that great art or great work in the world, we identify with it because it's technically proficient. We all know many things we've seen that were technically proficient, but no soul was there. And we all know art that we've seen that maybe wasn't the most technically proficient it could have been, but it touched our hearts because it was honest, because the person who created it was present there. So invite your anxiety into the room. Let it help you write. Let it help you create. Let it help you think of ideas. Thirdly, first of all, I want to say start. Okay? Just start with the one, just start. I don't know what that is for you, if it's a business plan you have dangling out there, if it's an email you know you need to send to somebody. Just start, okay? Write a sentence. Put your timer on. Put 30 minutes into your business plan. Send one scary email today. A scary email for me is sending an email to someone who has no reason to say yes to what I'm asking or who will certainly reject me. That's a scary email, but if you got one, send it. Start and start small. For some of us, our anxiety hits us so bad that start small is to get out of bed today. And if that's your start small, then celebrate it. Some mornings, my start small is like, I got out of bed, I ate food, I'm out here. Begin. Don't stay stuck in the part of the process that keeps you from starting. Last, I want to say, don't give up. Making and creating is hard work. Most of us who would call ourselves creatives or entrepreneurs are dealing with some element of anxiety or depression because it's hard to open your soul up to people all the time. It's hard to keep that state of vulnerability all the time. But don't give up. Don't give up on yourself. Don't give up on your ideas. Don't give up when the idea you thought was going to be great didn't go anywhere. Don't give up on the idea that everybody's telling you you can't do. Keep going back to the process. That's a part of how we face our creative anxiety. So we say we're not going to let the blinking cursor keep us from creating. We're not going to let the negative words people have said to us keep us from facing the stage every time. I want to close with a poem, and this is going to be actually a moment of me sharing some creative anxiety with you. As a spoken word poet, I really love the most when I have a poem like memorized, and I've got it like I'm about to come up and blow you away. That's how, spoken word poets don't say it out loud to you, but that's how we like to do. We like to make it look very effortless, like we weren't up all night, like crying and wondering if we were going to remember our words and stuff. So I've just finished a new poem, and I want to close today with it because I thought that would be a really great exercise in me sharing with you some creative anxiety. And I don't know how your life has been, but 2017 was a year that I was glad to break up with. It was not super great for me. I don't know if anybody else had that feeling. Some really great things happened, but then as the great things happened, there was some really terrible things that happened also. So it was this strange mixed bag of stuff that I'm normally not like that when a year is over. I'm kind of let us reflect on the things that we are thankful for that happened this year, the strawberries that were in season, whatever. And when this year was over, I was like, get out of here. No one wants you. We're done with you. You don't matter anymore, whatever. And I had started tinkering around with this poem idea, sort of my ode to 2017, or just when you go through a really crappy time. And this phrase kept going through the poem about being here. That when you are here, it means you have survived whatever it was that came before this moment that you're here. And some friends took us to see Kamasi Washington in December. I don't know if any of you got to see that show. Kamasi is amazing. And Kamasi is one of a small number of artists who I have gone to a show and cried. And the last song of his set was called Rhythm Changes. And the verses have all these different, things about the seasons. And the last line of the verses is this recurring, but no matter what, I'm here. And no matter how anxious we might be, no matter how much of a failure or a success we might feel like, we're here. So I want to read you this new poem called Here, Breathing, that is my ode to any of us that had a crappy 2017, and really my ode to any of us that have gone through a really, really hard time, that no matter how hard it was, you're sitting in this room with breath in your lungs. You're here. Here's this new poem, and thank y'all for listening. Take a look. Survey the damage, review the debris, the things that didn't survive. Look closely at the ashes you come from. Remember the way hard times can singe through just about everything. Assess what the flood and quake and sickness and death have stolen. Remember how the pain made you lift a life you never thought you had the strength to lift, gave you new muscles, made you just as strong as you are weak. Remember the time life wanted to fight you in a boxing match you never agreed to, punched you in the gut, hit you straight in the chest, stole the wind out the inside you. Remember rock bottom. How asphalt and concrete left tread marks on your cheeks, how you thought your knees would never find the strength to kneel, certainly not to stand, definitely not to walk, never to run again, how you never thought you'd say, much less live anything like the words get up, but you did. You survived. You are here, breathing. Remember how the words they said punctured your skin? Made you bleed, you applied pressure and yet continued to bleed, made you cry, made you question everything, made you doubt yourself, made you doubt God and goodness and grace, how you learned that truth be the best thread for suturing wounds, how time turns a stitch into new skin, how in the old places of pain, new life can find its footing, even when that footing is shaky, how overcoming didn't show up in the clothes you thought it would, but you did. You overcame. You are here, breathing. Look out across the devastation. See the life the fire missed. See the seeds always teaching us how and when and where to start over, how to experience death and bring things back to life, how to poke a limb through the dirt, how to soak up rain, how to search for sun, how to grow a spine so strong that it bends through wind and storm but does not break, how to turn the veins of your palms up, how to preen and dance and find the light, how to study your trunk and limbs and branches, trace the scars. Find them grooves, how your body is a quilt, how your skin is a storyteller, how your wrinkles and folds are a map uncolonized, how you found your North Star, somewhere between your collarbone and your rib cage, how your voice becomes a stream that always finds its river, how your feet do not fear a path never traveled, how your bones sing freedom, how they whisper, remember, you are here, breathing.